in the administration that's in charge of selling this to the American people?
Off the table, I agree we have better detection, but it doesn't account for those numbers.
So, just to put it in context, better detection is accounting for some of it. Like
Right, I know
like Barbara
some,
said.
but what other factors? I don't want to hear, what other factors?
Our surveillance program counts cases of autism and establishes the prevalence. It doesn't tell us all the answers to the questions as to why.
Okay.
So we are doing a number of studies to try to understand the why. And one of the things that we've tried to look at what's changed in the environment of things that we know are risk factors for autism, things like preterm birth and birth weight and various...
Well, are you looking at vaccinations? Is that part of your studies?
So let me just finish this one. So
I have a question. Are you looking at vaccinations? Is that part of pardon me?
So there is a large literature, as I mentioned.
Are you having a study on vaccinations and the fact that they're cramming them down and having kids have 9 at one time? Is that a call? Do you have any studies on vaccinations?
There have been a number of studies done by CDC on vaccinations.
Could you send them to the ranking member and the chairman here?
Yeah.
Now I want to tell you a story. We all react to our lives. And I remember people talking about hormone replacement. It's going to save women's lives. You got to take it. Yet every nurse I talked to said, go to the bank, it causes cancer. Every relative that got cancer said they got it because of the hormone replacement. I'm hearing the same kinds of stories on vaccination. I must have had 50 different parents write me or come to me and say I had a healthy child, yet then they had 10, 9, 6 vaccinations at one time, and that child changed overnight and was knocking their head on the wall, and it was a changed child. In fact, I had a family in my office today where the mother broke down crying, saying my child was wonderful, bright, precocious, talking. She took those vaccinations, and the child became very incredibly sick and has never recovered. So I'm interested in any studies on vaccinations and trying to understand that. Now, it used to be that you go and get a vaccination. My child never got more than 3 at a time. And in the state of New York, children are recommended to get 6 shots every 2 months throughout the first year of a child. And my question is, why does the schedule of these vaccinations require a child to receive so many shots in such a short period of time? You could plan those shots over a period of time. I'm for vaccinations. They prevent disease. I'm totally for it. But why do you have to cram 9, 6 at one time when the verbal evidence seems so strong from so many people that they had a healthy child until they got vaccinated? And you've got to just listen. I remember smoking. I was on the city council. I sat through so many hearings where they vowed smoking was not bad for your health. It's a common sense that it was bad for your health. Then finally, the Surgeon General said it was bad for your health. And the same thing seemed to be here with the vaccinations. There's too much verbal evidence coming from parents where they break down. I had a normal child. I gave him a vaccination, and then they came down with autism. So it seems to me we should. I'd start spacing it out. Why do we have to have 9 vaccinations, 6 vaccinations every 2 months? Why can't we do it over 2 or 3 years and space it and wait for the scientific evidence or whatever?
Gentleman's time's expired.
May she answer that question?
If you could summarize.
Sure. There is a federal advisory committee that determines the vaccination schedule, and the reason, and again, we'll clarify that this can get you more information. But the reason they cluster the vaccines is really to try to make sure that everyone gets it. People don't. Again, we're trying to make sure vaccines go to all children. And not everybody goes to the doctor routinely, so they use that opportunity to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Buchanan.
Say, because I know there's a lot of evidence that's good, but don't we get like 40 some vaccines our children today? Is that the number I'm hearing? Upward of 40? Yeah, either the doctors, just out of curiosity.
There's exact number, and it varies somewhat. I think 40 is a little bit high, but it's
Why would it be, just to point it out, why is it twice what France is, 3 times Finland, a lot of these other countries? And I know because there's a lot of people that move in and out of France, a lot of diversity. I just don't understand why our kids are getting so many shots. And I think of my father-in-law on a different standard, just in terms of common sense, where he's elderly, but he's taken 8 pills. They found out that a lot of them have effects and impacts on other pills. And that's why I don't know that we're spending enough time and energy looking at this, where our kids are getting twice the shots of everybody else. And I just have, my sons, it seems like they're older now, in their late 20s, but they might have had 7 or 8. And I'm just going by people that I represent in our area that feel strongly that this has to be looked at in a very, very aggressive way, that we're over-vaccinating our children. And I'll doctor either one of you.
We know vaccines save lives. There was a recent analysis that was presented at the pediatric meetings in April, and I actually have the numbers from that, where it was estimated that 42,000 lives were saved, 20 million cases of disease were prevented, and 13.6 billion in direct medical costs were saved, and that's for each birth cohort. Again, there are complexities in terms of the schedule. There are complexities in terms of the types of vaccines. And this is all carefully thought out by an advisory committee that oversees this process.
Have they looked at the impact that and I'm not a chemist or anything, but when you put all these drugs or vaccines into children, the impact that these various vaccines might be having, combinations? I mean, here's what I get back to. We've got in 2005, according to autism, it was 1 in 166 children. Today, it's 1 in 88. We brought that up a couple of times. Boys, it's 1 in 54. They're saying 40 years ago, whether it's true or not, this is what they're saying. I'd be interested in your thoughts. It's up 1,000%. So when you look at 40 years ago, maybe we got 6 shots. Now we're getting 40 shots. Is there possibility of any correlation? Either of you.
I mentioned earlier, that there is a body of evidence now. It's accumulated over the last 10 years looking at the relationship between vaccines and autism. And that was evaluated in 2004, again very recently in 2011, which didn't support an association between vaccines and autism from a population perspective.
Doctor, do you have anything to add to that?
I would agree. That's correct.
Let me ask you the other thing. They're saying that the person in their lifetime, the care cost is $2.3 million. Do you agree with that number for autism? That's the number I got.
I don't have a specific number. I'd be happy to provide additional information for the record on.
But I think it's $2.3 million, and they say that it costs the country. I didn't realize it was to this magnitude, $137 billion a year in annual cost this country for care of autism. Do you agree with that number? Either of you?
Again, I would not have the data to agree or disagree. I know that it's a high number.
Okay, well, I just want to let you know we've got to spend more time and resources and fix this problem because it's obviously out of control. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm just sitting here and I'm listening to all this. There's something wrong with this picture. There's something wrong. It's and the gentleman I thought asked some very good questions. As a matter of fact, the whole panel. When you got this combination of shots, and you go from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 88, it seems to me somebody would say, wait a minute, let's put the brakes on this, and at least let's try to figure out whether, if I'm giving a baby 9 shots in a day, whether how much impact that's having. I don't know how it just seems logical. If they gave me 9 shots, I would, I don't know what that, and then I know you said there's a body of evidence with regard to vaccines. Mr. Chairman, I don't know where we go from here, but it just seems to me somebody ought to say, wait a minute, let's put some brakes on this, and not saying don't deal with vaccines, just look at, whether the multiple shot situation is causing this. And I wish you could see the people behind you. They're grown men that have been crying behind you, and women crying. And it's just I just hope that we can. I mean, you hear the frustration coming from here, and I'm just sitting here and I'm just saying, wait a minute. It just seems like somebody would say, is there something? Maybe there's an issue here, and if we're going to err, let's err on the side of keeping children safe. Even if we have to, do a pause and give one shot a day. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, for yielding.